My name's Amy Morelli. I'm happy to be here to talk with debut author Charlie McMahon about his hilarious new memoir. His hilarious new memoir, A Whole Lot of Shenanigans, which he wrote about his time managing a parking lot near courthouses here in suburban Atlanta. Charlie, as y'all will probably be able to figure out about 5 words after he starts talking, is born and bred on Long Island. He's a lifetime Yankees fan, a proud New Yorker, an animal lover, and host of the hilarious podcast, A Bunch of Malarkey, as well as a general jack of all trades. Charlie, congratulations on the new book, and welcome. Thanks for being here. I'm just sitting here watching the wheels go round and round. I really love to watch them roll.
Thank you, everybody, for coming here tonight. Amy, do you mind if I thank a few people before we get started? First and foremost, I want to thank my wife. I'll try not to get choked up, but folks, without somebody great by your side, no matter what dream you have, whether it be writing a book, running a marathon, whatever it is, if you don't have that person by your side that supports you, and I know most of you know Jen, and what a great person she is, and I drove her crazy with this book before, during, and after, so let's give a hand to Jen, because her name should be on the cover. And I want to thank Kristen for her editing and her hilarious sense of humor. Thank you, Kristen. I want to thank Christina, who is our graphic designer, who couldn't be here tonight, but thank you so much, Christina, for the awesome job you did on the cover and the back cover. You made the process really great for me, and I appreciate that. Benji Kurtz, where's Benji? Benji, thank you so much. Without Benji, Benji's been a lifesaver. He wrote the foreword in the book, excellent. Really gave me a lot of advice. Benji's an author himself. He really gave me a lot of advice. And his friendship is priceless, and his wife Claire as well, helping with this party and getting us all together tonight. Thank you, Benji and Claire, I really appreciate it. And I want to thank Amy for agreeing to do this tonight. We're sitting next to a crazy New Yorker, thank you so much. And her husband, Stuart, for listening to my crazy stories for the last 2 years and on repeat. Thank you guys so much, I really appreciate it. Where's Matt? There he is, Matt. Without you, none of this happens. Matt got me, I don't know whether to thank him or throw him the hell out of here for getting me the job at the parking lot. But thank you, Matt. Again, your friendship means a lot too, and thank you so much for everything, Matt. Renee and John. Where's Renee and John? Over here in the corner. You guys, our friendship means so much to me. Our dinners every week and going over these crazy stories, and you guys putting up with my crap every week. And John for helping me out with my podcast and being a guest co-host every once in a while. You guys are the best, and I value and treasure the friendship we have with you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for putting my truck on the cover of your book.
I am. John's truck is on the cover of the book, so we got to pay homage to that. I want to thank Cha-Cha, who's sitting right here. Cha-Cha would pass every morning, works at the courts, and I'd be pissed off by 7 o'clock in the morning, and this woman would pass every morning and be the happiest woman in the world. And I'd say to myself, how does she do it? But Cha-Cha, thank you so much for, her boyfriend wants to say otherwise, but Cha-Cha, thank you so much for everything. And I also want to shout out, he's not here tonight, to Don, who's also another bailiff at the court, at the state court. Our talks every morning at 6 a.m. were priceless, and I thank him so much for those. I wouldn't have been able to do it without him. Jennifer Barnes, where's Jennifer? Jennifer was one of our regular parkers who would listen to these stories every day, and she was just a wonderful woman, is a wonderful woman, and thank you so much. And just people on Facebook, my friends on Facebook who encouraged me to write the book. Brian is one of them, and all of you that would read the stories and say, you gotta write a book, you gotta write a book, you gotta write a book. Amanda, I know you listen to all my stories every day, and I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight. My friends and family on Facebook, my in-laws, Lane and Paul Rosa, thank you for your encouragement. Hope you're doing well out there on Long Island. My brother Brian and his husband, and my sister in Florida, if you're watching, I love you both. And I miss you guys. Thank you. Now the funny stuff.
Well, I don't know how funny this is, but as background, would you mind telling all of us how you ended up working at the parking lot that features in A Whole Lot of Shenanigans?
Well, funny story, I was actually starting to write a book. The day I got the call to work in the parking lot, I've been wanting to write a book for years about my crazy Italian family in New York. And I think it would put this book to shame, to be honest, and it may come someday. But I actually sat down that day and I started writing, and I got a call from no other than Matt, here in the back, who happens to work for the owners of the parking lot, and they were looking for somebody to work there, and asked if I would be interested. So I went down there and had a chat about the job. Now, with my background, I knew I was probably overqualified to work in a parking lot, but I figured I was running my own business at the time, a DJ business, and I felt that it was something to do during the week when I wouldn't have events. So that's how I basically got the job at the parking lot. So we can, again, thank Matt or throw him the hell out of here. Want to throw him out the door?
I think a lot of people consider writing a book about their work. Like, I imagine it can be very cathartic, right? And so I guess, for instance, I actually thought about doing it myself. When I was practicing criminal law, I started to write down some stories similar to the ones that you have. My favorite, the book was going to be called "You Can't Make This Shit Up."
You really can't.
No, you can't. And my favorite story was about a criminal defendant who wore the same distinctive T-shirt to his trial that he'd worn while being videotaped robbing a convenience store. So when the prosecutor and the defense attorney saw that, he pled out. So,
well,
a lot of people...
There's your introduction.
Well, so, a lot of people think about doing this, but so few of us ever actually do it. What prompted you to actually write the book?
Amy, there are certain unwritten social rules that we all should follow. I mean, growing up in an Irish-Italian family, raised as an Italian, it was chaos in the house all the time. Chaos, but we acted like crazy people within the confines of our house. But we were told when we went out in public, there were certain unwritten rules that we need to follow, that people must have not gotten that same book that I got as a kid, because they're just crazy out there. And as a New Yorker, I thought all the crazy people lived in the Northeast. I said, we're going to move to the South. Everybody's normal down there. Everybody's nice. There's crazy people everywhere, folks. So, as the story started to compile, after the first view, people started, I was telling them on Facebook, and people started saying, you gotta write a book about this. Like, people thought I was like exaggerating or making the stories up, Amy, but they're crazy people out there. And it's not limited to one area of the country, I can tell you that.
Well, that's true. And so, one of the things that I noticed right off the bat, you mentioned there are crazy people everywhere, is that you dedicated this book to people who work in the service industry. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I started my work career working as a retail manager, and I could write a whole book about that. I mean, people sleeping overnight, trying to sleep overnight on patio displays, taking craps in kiddie pools. Disgusting. I could write a book on retail stories. My parents worked in retail. My parents worked their whole lives in supermarkets and worked very hard. And my dad was a quiet Irish guy. My mom is a loud Italian. And she would come home with these stories from the supermarket. And my mom is an exaggerator by nature. So we would be like, there's no way these stories are true. And I found out later that these stories are indeed true. My mom wasn't really always exaggerating. So I dedicated the book to everybody who worked in retail because I saw what it was like for my parents coming home every day, exhausted, mentally and physically beaten up. I saw how I came home working in retail and dealing with the public. And I had a friend named Kevin Farley, who next month it'll be the 10-year anniversary of his passing. He was my first boss in my first job, and we kept in touch for years, and I wish that he was around to see this book, because we would sit in his backyard for many years and compare retail stories and reminisce about retail stories and sit and drink beer and listen to Steely Dan and Jackson Browne and the Eagles. and talk about writing a book. And unfortunately, he never got the opportunity to do that because he passed suddenly 10 years ago. So in part, this is for him and everybody who's worked in that sector.
That's nice. And so you alluded to one thing that I wanted to ask you about. Is everything in this book true?
Everything in this book is true, and I don't know if it's fortunately or unfortunately, I didn't have to exaggerate. I would just peer out that window. I was in an 8x8 wooden shack, folks. No bathroom. I mean, I finally got some Wi-Fi in there. I finally got... Exactly, it was like a private cell, and it was like sitting in the middle of an ocean as a tsunami came in the morning, and you knew you had to ride up, like, remember The Perfect Storm, where, what's his name, Mark Wahlberg, and what was his name, George Clooney, they saw that wave coming and they tried to get the boat over. That was me every single morning around 7:45, 8 o'clock when those cars started rolling in. I knew what was coming, and there was no way to avoid it. You just had to hope for the best, and I didn't have to exaggerate.
Plan for the worst.
Prepare for the worst every day, and it would start before the people would come, folks. I would find dirty diapers, the things I would find in that parking lot that I'd have to clean before the day even got started. People would change their oil overnight and leave an oil pan, like it was Jiffy Lube. Like I was running a Jiffy Lube over there. Oil pans, you name it, every Burger King bag, every fast food, it was disgusting. So, it's all true. To make a long story short.
Well, now, if it's okay with you, I'd like to give everyone a taste of the book and read an excerpt.
Yeah, I know there are a couple of children in the audience tonight, so there is a little bit of rough language because this is verbatim what the conversation had, so I apologize in advance, but we're keeping it real.
I'll try to clean it up a little bit, but I might slip a few times. Okay, so this is Intercepted Interview, and I'm going to play the intolerable interviewee.
And Mrs. Jones.
And Mrs. Jones. And Charlie will narrate and play himself.
All right, folks, there are lots of life rules out there that many people follow, such as be comfortable in your own skin, drop the resentment within, appreciate what you have, and don't compare yourself to others. Much bigger than a life rule is the golden rule. We all learned the golden rule back in school, folks. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Treat people the way you would like to be treated. Pretty simple concept, right? At the parking lot, I always treated everyone with respect and offered a nice greeting and willingness to help, no matter how stupid the question or the person was. I went above and beyond my job description on a daily basis to ensure that the parking lot was a welcoming place for everyone. After all, many people arrived there headed to court and were already stressed out about what they may face when they walk through those courthouse doors. I kept that in mind and went out of my way to be polite and even lent an ear when they wanted to vent about their situation or court case. Many of my repeat customers commented on my demeanor and willingness to help. But I was a good actor. I was almost always in a bad mood because of the working conditions, lack of help, lack of owner involvement, and the 20% or so of the customers who were just flat out rude and confrontational. That's where I drew the line. I took no shit from anyone and gave it back just as hard, if not harder, than they gave it to me. After all, I didn't answer to anybody. The owners were not involved, and frankly, not interested in all the confrontations that took place there daily. The pile of cash at the end of the day was their only concern. So I ran things my way. On a very busy, rainy Tuesday morning around 10:05 a.m., a woman pulled into the parking lot, chatting it up on her cell phone. She proceeded to run over the cones I had placed in the parking spot next to my booth. She honked her horn in one long, steady, and obnoxious honk while waving her credit card out the driver's side window. I ignored her. This is not how this place operated. There was no drive-through service at this lot. It was up to the customer to find an available, not a coned-off spot, and then come up to the payment booth where I was stationed and pay their fee. The incessant honking went on for several more minutes until she realized it was getting her nowhere. She then decided to come up to the booth while deep in conversation on the phone.
Didn't you hear me honking?
Yes, ma'am, but we don't process payments at vehicles. Oh, and you ran over those 2 cones as well.
What cones?
The ones wedged under your car?
Hold on. Who the fuck do you think you are? I have an interview. You could come out and help me. What do they pay you for here?
Ma'am, that's not how it works. I can't leave my post. I got money in here. I don't have a portable credit card machine to process your payment at the car.
Just take the card and do your job then. I can't believe exceptions aren't made in the rain. Now I'm going to be wet for my interview.
You ever hear of an umbrella, ma'am?
I have an umbrella in the car.
A lot of good it's doing you here.
You're rude. Just run the car.
I'm only rude to people who show no respect and act like they're entitled, ma'am. The intolerable interviewee resumed her phone conversation as I was processing her payment. She ranted about me, asking her cell phone buddy,
Can you believe this guy here? Did you hear that crap? What kind of service is this?
She went on to tell the person on the phone that she had a job interview at the probate court at 10:30. She also mentioned who she would be interviewing with. Here you go, ma'am. Good luck on your interview. Don't forget your umbrella.
I should have you fired for making me come out in the rain.
I ignored the now very wet, intolerable interviewee and watched as she sloshed back to her vehicle. She sat in her car for a few more minutes and continued to chat it up on the phone very loudly, still ranting and raving about the service she felt what she was entitled to. Then it hit me. I had her name from the credit card slip. I knew where she was interviewing. I knew who she was interviewing with. I couldn't let this information go to waste. I pulled up the court directory on my laptop, and bingo, I found the interviewer's name. I picked up the outdated landline phone, dialed star 67 so my number would be blocked, and called the number.
This is Mary Jones speaking. How may I help you?
Yeah, Mrs. Jones, do you have a Lisa Smith coming in at 10:30 for a job interview?
I really can't give out that kind of information. May I ask who you are?
I'm a concerned citizen.
Okay, can I ask what you need or what this is in reference to?
Well, it's in reference to Lisa Smith, who's coming in for an interview with you in a few minutes. I think twice about hiring her ass.
Well, I can't confirm that I have an interview with a Lisa Smith, but if I did, can I ask why I shouldn't hire her?
Oh, of course, Mrs. Jones. Lisa has a very difficult time exercising common courtesy. She has an entitled personality, thinks she's better than other people, talks down to people, shows no respect, and is not fit to deal with the public. And what a filthy mouth she has, too. I just want to save you the time and the trouble, Mrs. Jones.
Well, can I ask you how long you've known her?
Long enough, Mrs. Jones. Long enough. Take my word for it. Lisa Smith is more drama than an episode of Real Housewives. Spare yourself.
Well, thank you for the heads up. I'll keep this in mind.
I'm just looking out for you in the court system. You don't need her ass parked in your office each day. You'll go insane.
Well, have a great day. Thanks for the information.
You too, Mrs. Jones. Bye-bye. Now it was approaching 10:20, and the intolerable interviewee, umbrella now in hand, jumped puddles over to the courthouse for her now tainted interview. I felt I did my part. The rest was up to Mrs. Jones inside the courthouse. A few short minutes later, at 10:28 a.m., I saw the intolerable interviewee headed back towards the vehicle. I thought to myself, how could an interview be finished 2 minutes before it was supposed to start? Did she forget something? Of course she was on the phone, spilling the beans about what just happened inside.
Why did they make me come all the way down here for that position if it was already filled? What a waste of my day. Yeah, they said they forgot to call and cancel. Unfucking believable.
The intolerable interviewee, still ranting on her cell phone, backed out over the traffic cones and headed out of sight. For that one rainy morning, me and Mrs. Jones, we had a thing going on. And that was to teach the intolerable interviewee the golden rule. I gotta say, you did that role very well.
It comes naturally.
Is that true, Stuart?
Thanks for giving me the role I was born to play.
So needless to say, the job hunting continued. Rightfully so, right?
Well, yes. I mean, you really did do a public service.
You should mail her a copy of the book with that part on it.
Well, those aren't those real.
As your attorney, do not do that.
Well, I just want to say those were not the real names of the folks involved, obviously. And I said that at the beginning of the book. All names have been changed to protect the innocent or the guilty. And to protect my ass, exactly.
First things first, gotta look out for numero uno. This was my favorite story, Charlie. I mean, I just think there's something about it that really resonates in watching someone get her comeuppance. So can you talk about, one of the things I noticed in the book is that in the parking lot you meted out a different kind of justice than the type that
Parking justice.
Yeah, than the type that was happening in the courthouses. Why do you think that these stories about people sort of, getting what's coming to them, karma, why do you think that they're so appealing to people?
Because how often do you say, when somebody does something bad, you say they're going to get theirs, but you never see it? I got to see it instantly. There was another, I don't want to give away too many of the stories, but there was another story where a lawyer came in and put me down and said I was a minimum wage worker and thought he was a big shot and told me I make minimum wage and that he makes more in an hour than I make in a year. And I said a few choice words back to him and got him upset. And he ended up crashing his car out on the street because he was so angry. And that's instant karma. I know John Lennon wrote a song, Instant Karma. But how often do you get to see that? I got to see it on multiple occasions. If it didn't come naturally, I delivered it. And that's because, Amy, if I'll elaborate a little bit, again, that goes back to my roots. My dad was a quiet Irish man, rest in peace, Dad, you were great. He put up with a loud Italian for 42 years. I don't know how the man did it. My mother was the queen of spite. If someone complained about her music, one of the neighbors, my mother would just put the vacuum cleaner on at 5 o'clock in the morning with the windows open and just let it run for hours. Wake everybody up. She was the queen of getting even with people or thinking that she had to get even with people. So I guess, as much as I'd like to be like my dad, I guess I picked up quite a bit from my mom.
Well, and actually, Charlie, that's one of the things that I was going to ask you about because I definitely felt like this book was sort of like a tale of two Charlies. On one hand, you were very empathetic to people who were often in a difficult situation. I mean, you're married to an attorney, I'm a lawyer, we all know that people who are going to court, they're often in situations they don't want to be in. Maybe they're getting a divorce, maybe they're charged with a crime, that kind of thing. And so you really seem to, empathize and also in some situations actually help people. But then, as you yourself admit, there's also this kind of vengeful side to it.
I mean, as you know, the people that are friends with me in this room and at home watching, I'll do anything for my friends or family. They don't even have to ask. I'm just that kind of person. But when someone crosses me the wrong way, I feel like this need to somehow even the score up. Within the legal limits, of course. But I always get, and like you said, and I know some of our regular partners can attest to it, that I was always pleasant. To people that were pleasant to me, go out of my way. There were people that looked like they were thirsty. I would open up the refrigerator in the booth and give them drinks. Whatever anybody needed, I would be the first guy out there to help. But someone rubbed me the wrong way, like this woman in the story, it was all over for them.
Well, and actually you mentioned one of my other favorite stories, the attorney who crashed his car and kind of got his just desserts. So I've mentioned some of my favorite stories. What's yours?
My favorite in the book, and it was a parking lot, folks. People thought it was Bloomingdale's, where there was some higher corporate office that they had to complain to. I would tell them the rules or the price, or tell them once you paid for parking, if you leave, if you tried to come back, you had to pay again. They couldn't wrap their mind around this. I want to speak to the corporate office. It's a parking lot. What corporate office of a parking lot? So I would get this all the time. They said, you can't be the final say. We need to speak to someone higher. There was nobody higher. The owner didn't want anyone calling her cell phone. So about a year into the job, the owner said to me, we're going to put Wi-Fi in the booth so you can stream music so you won't eat up all your data plan. But it's cheaper for me to buy the triple play program, which includes a landline, internet service, and TV. Now, I'm not going to watch TV all day, folks, because you can't there. But a light bulb went off in my head. I said, if she's putting a phone in here, and I have the number to that phone, I went out to Walmart and I bought a cheap cordless phone and I hooked it up. I then called the bank and I said, I want this phone number printed on all the receipts, which was the landline inside the booth. And then I started telling people that this was the corporate office. So as they walked away, angry about what they were upset with that morning, they would dial this corporate office and I'd answer it on the other end. They just left me. And I'd say, corporate office, may I help you? And these people thought they were actually talking to a corporate office somewhere. And there was this one lady who caused a ruckus at the booth. She was on a cell phone, and I said to her, ma'am, you're either going to have to get off the phone and step aside and let the rest of the people go because we're backing up. She told me, you don't pay my bill, I'll stay here as long as I want. And she goes, I want the number to your corporate office. So I gave her the number to the corporate office, the fake corporate office. And when she called an hour later, I answered corporate office. And it was so generic, folks. Corporate parking office. How more generic can you get? And she says, yeah, I want to report the guy who works down by the courthouse with the Yankees hat on. I said, yeah, what happened? He was rude to me this morning. He cursed me out. I said, let me look at the tape. There was no tape. I had fake cameras on top of the booth that I brought in just to deter assholes. So she says, I want to speak, I want to report him. I said, what time were you in? Why does that matter? I said, because I'm going to review the tapes. I was in at 8:45. Now I knew what this woman was wearing. So I said, I put her on hold, and I got back on, and I said, ma'am, are you wearing black pants, a white blouse, and a beige purse? Yeah, why? I said, I'm reviewing the tapes, and it looks to me like you're the asshole. And she said to me, what did you say? I said, you lied about the whole thing, ma'am. I just reviewed the tapes, and you were the asshole this morning. So I said, we had words on the phone, I hung up. 10 minutes later, she comes by looking up at the top of the booth to see if there were really cameras, and there were just dummy cameras up there. So that's my favorite, just setting up a fake corporate office.
Hello? Okay. Clearly I'm not born for this after all. So that's your favorite story?
That's my favorite.
Now tell me about one that didn't make the cut.
Well, I hate to, some of you, maybe one or two people in here might know this person, so I'm not going to name him by name. There was this lawyer that worked across the street from the courthouse, and he was a nice guy. He would come by and talk to me, but for some reason he had, now I didn't understand this, he had like a 1991 Lincoln Town car that he still had payments on. How is that possible? And the repo man was coming to his house, trying to get his car out of his backyard. But he would put it like in the woods so the truck would sink in the mud. And then he would come in every day and want to hide his car in my parking lot. And now this is a lawyer. This is, one of you are going to get charged with a crime, and this is your lawyer who's showing up, who's hiding his car in my parking lot. So I didn't want to put him in the book because I actually thought he was a decent guy, but he would come up with these crazy stories like, he would tell me too much information. Hey, Charlie, good morning. How are you, sir? Oh, not good. I had Chinese food last night and it ran through me like Sherman ran through Atlanta. Do I need to know that? A little too much information there, buddy.
And that seems to be one of the themes that runs throughout the book, is that everyone told you too much information.
Now, folks, you've all parked in places, right? Have you ever thought of asking the parking attendant for legal advice? For marital advice? I park my car, I go to a ball game. My wife and I, we park the car, we get out, we pay the ticket, and we go to the ball game. I'm not asking the guy if he sells paper and envelopes and the crazy things people ask me if I sold. Folks, it's a parking lot. I just never thought of asking a parking lot attendant for anything but parking. But I got, people would tell me all about their court cases, why they were there, update me on the case. and I would sit there and listen. But there comes a point now, if someone looks at you folks and you're telling them a story and you don't look interested, wouldn't you kind of like, all right, I don't think this guy, it didn't stop him.
Never does.
One of the things that you mentioned earlier was sort of how there are like jerks everywhere, right? But did you experience like any culture shock when you were down here like, and you started working in the parking lot? Like I know that you'd moved here a few years before, you had started working at the lot. But do you think your experience would have been different if this parking lot had been in like Boston or Philadelphia or New York?
No, I don't think so. I think because there are crazy people everywhere. Like I said earlier, you can go any corner of the United States, and this is what I talk about. I have a podcast, in case you don't know. It's called A Bunch of Malarkey. It's a weekly show that I get on and talk about stuff like this. And I call them mutants, folks. They're mutants. They're just people not fit to come out in society, that have no social skills, people who rub the calluses off their feet on a train. So these people are everywhere, folks. There's no avoiding them. You step out of the house, and like you said, I was here how many years before? 5 years before I took the job in the parking lot. So the only culture shock I would say is that I ran my own DJ business for years, and I dealt with happy people that were planning their weddings, events, Sweet 16s, and we have somebody in the audience tonight. I did her daughter's Sweet 16. People were happy to see me, wanted to coordinate their event. So going from a job where everybody was happy about seeing me to people who despise seeing me because they had to pay for something that they didn't want to pay for was troubling.
Sure. And that actually leads me to my next question, which is like, you've done a lot of different jobs in your life. Like you have been a DJ, you drove for Uber for a while. Can you talk about some of the jobs you've had and tell us whether this one was the worst?
It actually wasn't the worst. I worked in retail management for 10 years. Then I was a purchasing and logistics manager for 2 IT companies and a pharmaceutical company. And then I started my own DJ business. I got tired of working for people who were getting rich while I was just killing myself. So I started my own business, which was very successful for 10 years, both in New York and Atlanta. But it wasn't the worst job. I would have to say there was a department store. Most of you don't know the name of this department store. It was kind of like a hybrid between Walmart and Target. It was called Caldor. It was a chain up in, I think, in the Northeast and maybe in the Midwest. That was probably the worst job I ever had. We used to have to rake with rakes the shoe department after a day, because people would just rip the shoes apart and just throw them on the floor. We would have to go to the garden department and get rakes to rake the shoe department back together at the end of the day. The store was just tread. The store was on the floor at the end of the day, and it was just
Is
crazy.
this the job where someone used a kiddie pool as the toilet?
Yes, it was. And there was also a story from that job where the president of Caldor was coming in. So all of us managers worked overnight to make sure the store was spotless. And I was in charge of like 10 departments in the store. Everything was perfect that day, or so I thought. It was like 2 weeks before Christmas. He goes into the stock room, and there was a few cases of toys still on the shelf. And he says, "Charlie, I think we should get these out on the shelf, find some room out there." I said, "Yes, sir, I'll get those out." So he reached in the box to see what toys were in there. One of the overnight crew obviously couldn't make it to the restroom and decided to defecate in the box. And he stuck his hand in there, and the president of the corporation had crap all over his hand, and I just wanted to dig a hole right there and die. So yeah, a little worse than the parking lot.
Well, so, you've had like a lot of cool jobs and you're a really smart guy, but as you've alluded to, sometimes people didn't treat you very respectfully. Like you talked about the lawyer who called you a minimum wage worker and, people who just were unkind. How did that make you feel? And what was it like to be, treated as someone who wasn't you, who was different than what you really are?
As a New Yorker, and I hate to compare, I don't know if the people here in the South is, we're thick-skinned up in New York. Everything is, you've got to fight for everything in New York. A subway seat, a bus seat, everything. Everything's a hustle and a grind. So, like they say, if you can make it up in New York, you can make it anywhere. it didn't bother me. I know who I am. I know what I'm capable of. I knew the job was well beneath my skill set, but I was, going to work every day, earning an honest living, and what somebody off the street thought of me, it didn't really matter. I knew at the end of the day, I go home to a great wife and a great house. I have great friends, most of which are here tonight. It didn't matter what
Well,
this
that's
person said.
good. So right now, I'd like to, if it's okay with you, open it up to a few audience questions.
Yeah, sure. That would be
Okay, great. Anybody have a question for Charlie?
So how has your experience with how people treated you, has that changed you and how you treat other people in the service industry?
No, I've always been one. That's a great question. I've always been one, even like before.
Repeat the question.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Okay. The question is has your experience kind of changed the way you treat other people? Is that right? Okay.
Not at all, because I've always been one to make sure that a waitress or a waiter gets a good tip. And that was like my gauge when I was out in the dating world. If I was out with a girl and she was rude to a waitress, I knew she was probably going to be rude to everybody. That usually was the gauge in the dating world. And like I said, my parents were in the retail business, so I knew the struggles they went through. It hasn't made it worse, for sure. It's probably made me appreciate people in the service industry a lot more, which I've always appreciated, but probably gave me a new level of appreciation for them. And appreciate the question.
All right. Next question?
Yes.
Cha-cha.
Cha-cha.
Can you please come back to work?
Cha-cha wants to know if Charlie will please come back to work at the parking lot.
So the wonderful lady who asked that question would be someone who passed by my booth every morning around 7 a.m., was the first or second person I'd see every day. I couldn't understand it. I would ask her this, how are you so cheerful coming to this place every day? Because we knew, like I said, the tsunami was coming. Her boyfriend has his hand up, so that I don't know if I want to go there.
He's taking credit.
Oh, he's taking credit.
For why I'm at.
So Bob's taking credit for how nice she is. But
He's like, it's all because of him.
no, I never go back, and when they read this book, I'd probably never be welcomed back.
But I would love
Well, thank you.
it. It was always
Exactly.
Okay. Do we have another question? Ashley.
So as Matt's wife, I feel like I should ask, is there anything good that came out of your job?
Ashley wants to make sure that they haven't reaped what they've sown. Matt's wife, Matt is who helped Charlie get the job at the parking lot. Ashley wants to know if there were any compensations to working at the parking lot, if there was anything good about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are a few people sitting in this audience tonight that I wouldn't have met otherwise. So I'm thankful for the friends and the people I've met, and a few people.
Not everyone was terrible.
No, not at all. And there are a few people that sadly couldn't make it tonight that I mentioned earlier that really brightened my day and I consider friends. So meeting the people that I met there and just getting a taste of what retail, because it's kind of the parking business is kind of like retail. Just getting a taste of retail, again, made me remember my early days, my early career, and made me appreciate, what I've had over the last few years isn't all that bad.
Any other questions? Benji.
So obviously it didn't take 2 years to figure out that this was not your ideal job. Well, why did you stay as long as you did? And was there a point where you were just staying to collect stories, or why did you choose to stay so long?
Benji wants to know why Charlie stayed at this terrible job so long. If it was just to collect stories for the book, or if there were other reasons.
I think you just get in a routine where you just get up every day, you do what you have to do, and I'm very regimented. I didn't have to be until like 7:30, but I was there at like 6:30 every morning. I'm very regimented in what I do. And it was, again, something to do in between DJ gigs and big events that I had planned. So I think about a year in, I started in January of 2016. I think by mid-2017, I started to realize that I've got to get out of here soon before I go insane. So I probably stayed an extra 6 months, Benji, because the stories were coming in really good and I wanted to finish out whatever I needed to do, because I'd say after a year and a half, I decided I wanted to write a book about this.
Any Well, the question is, has the owner of the book read it?
We'll defer to, do you feel the owner of the lot has read the book? The question was? Apparently we don't have confirmation yes or no, but we're thinking no because we probably would have heard something about it. And I just want to make it clear tonight that this isn't a book about a disgruntled guy who left a job he hated writing a book to bash the owners or anything like that. The ownership is mentioned maybe 5 or 6 times in maybe a slight jab here and there for their.
But really, like, the point is that they're just business owners, right? I think
Yeah, they're
that's
business
what their goal
owners. They
is
said,
to-
here it is, you run it. And the point of the book is about the crazy interactions I had at the parking lot. It wasn't to bash ownership or make them look bad. So hopefully if they do get wind of the book, they read it, they have a few laughs as well.
Sure. I mean, they were business owners. Their goal was to run a successful business, and you helped them do that, essentially.
And if you're watching owners for some crazy reason, I'll be happy to set up a stand, autograph and sell books if you'll let me have a little space. You know, that parking space where that woman ran over the cones, I think is perfect.
Maybe they can name that spot after
Absolutely.
you, like reserve it for you in perpetuity.
Exactly.
Well, one of the things that I wanted to discuss is that, you know, you mentioned yourself that you don't want to get political in the book, and I don't want to get too political here, even though it's a little hard in this day and age not to. But I think one of the things that I really enjoyed the most about this book was that it didn't rely on political humor for laughs. I mean, it was so unifying in the sense that it was relatable. Like, everyone could relate to these stories. They're humorous, regardless of your political persuasion or lack thereof. Was that like a goal for you, or was it kind of just a happy circumstance, happy surprise?
You know, I think that artists, whether they're actors, singers, are entitled to their political views, whether it be on stage, off stage. They have their right. I wanted to do this book for people to escape that, and I do that on my podcast as well. I want people to be able to turn on my podcast and laugh for 45 minutes, read this book and laugh for however long it takes them to read the book, and just escape from that. It's like when you go to the movies or turn on the radio. You just want to get away from that. You can go on Facebook, you can turn on the 24-hour news cycles. If that's what you want, it's there. But if you want to escape it, comedy and music and things of that, the movies, have always been that escape for people, and I wanted to keep it that way in the book.
And I think you did a great job with that, and I appreciated the escape,
Thank you.
for one. So, any plans for a new book? Another one?
Well, folks, we'll see how this does. I can compare this, I guess, to, anybody here ever have a garage sale? Where you prepare for weeks, and you go through all that crazy price and everything, putting out tables, and then you make $40. You're like, why did I do that? No, but I think any artist, and I think Matt can attest to that, Matt's a great painter, you do it for the love of what you do. So if the book does well, and I break even, great, and all of you out there are interested in it, it's great. If it doesn't, I gained a valuable experience. I had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun gathering everybody tonight. And I wouldn't rule it out, but the amount of work, the writing part, folks, was easy. It was everything that came after the writing, the formatting, the editing, which Jen and Kristen, I can't thank them enough for doing. Everything that came after the writing was the stressful and hard part, and getting it launched and getting people interested, and now marketing it through Christmas. So that's the hard part. So I wouldn't rule it out, but I'm not looking to do that right away.
Well, thanks for writing this one. I enjoyed it. I loved it. I hope everybody else does too.
Yeah, folks, pick a few copies up. Tell your friends. Perfect stocking stuffer. 18 and over is probably a good idea because of the language. But I think you'll enjoy it. And if you do pick it up and enjoy it, any reviews up on Amazon would really help the cause. And really, from the bottom of my heart, this party isn't about putting me in the spotlight tonight or making. I really just wanted to celebrate a really great accomplishment with everybody here tonight, everybody watching at home, my friends and family, and I really can't thank you enough for taking time out of your weekend to come down here and have some food and drink and have some laughs with us. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Charlie, and congratulations.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you for this tonight.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure.
And everybody out there, if you go on Amazon now, you could probably get it by Monday. So feel free.
Yes, the book is for sale here, and Charlie will be doing signings, and then it's also for sale on Amazon and as in a paperback and ebook form. So.
And for those in the Atlanta area that, for those outside the Atlanta area that couldn't make it tonight, who want a signed copy or personalized copy, there'll be an eBay channel set up tomorrow, so I can get those out to you. So you can go on eBay. I'll put the link up tomorrow, and I'll get those out to all my friends around the country who want a signed copy. So I definitely didn't forget you guys. So thank you for your interest as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.